Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and Iman here from the Block Runner, and today we're going to take a look at the markets and see where the next sector you should be focusing on in terms of what's going to be rallying. So Iman, we were just talking about Bitcoin earlier, and we have a sort of a disagreement as to where things could potentially go. And
it's not disagreement. It's I'm never as certain as you about things like this. I don't like to cling to any certainty, right? Because then it leaves no room for caution.
True,
but you always got to be aware of the cautious downside, to anything you're doing in life, right? So this is just one of those things. You don't want to be blindly optimistic about things.
Yeah.
Even though this chart, I think you make a lot of sense. You're about to go through the reasoning here in a second, but I agree with you in a lot of respects, but you also cannot discredit the downside potential.
Yeah, I totally agree with that explanation as well. But you can't say that and in the same breath also say that gold is valuable, because the reason why I like the stock to flow and the stock to flow cross asset model, and we've made videos on this before, so just do a search on YouTube for that. But the reason why I like it is because it uses the same measurements, the same metrics that is used to value gold. Like the exact same thing, right? There's no difference in terms of valuing Bitcoin versus gold, and in terms of like the mechanics of putting a value to it. And so if that's the case, then right now gold is obviously more valuable than Bitcoin, but that's because of the stock to flow ratio for gold is higher than Bitcoin. And, and in the next 4 years, in the next halving cycle, the stock to flow ratio for Bitcoin would be almost twice that of gold. Twice.
Still, there's still this one little caveat, dude. There's this thing about the whole Bitcoin's 10 to 11 year lifespan only existing within a very unprecedented economic time, like a part of our overall macroeconomic history.
Absolutely.
The Bitcoin's existence has only been a part of it during an over expansion phase, right? We've never seen Bitcoin react to any real significant downside. We don't know what's going to happen. So just like you like to relate Bitcoin to gold and stuff, you got to also account for gold's multi-thousand-year history within our civilization. Bitcoin's only been around for 10. Who's to say it doesn't take another 1,000 years for Bitcoin to hit that $1 million mark? We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Right.
I mean, that's true. That's true. But the same, but like I said, the same mechanics that make gold valuable is the exact same thing for Bitcoin. And and Bitcoin was just invented 10 years ago, roughly.
And then there's that whole virality aspect, right? It's internet money, right? So it's much more acquirable than freaking. Yeah. You got to dig into the core of the earth or whatever. However you get gold these days, you got dynamite mountains to get a hold of this stuff.
But the virtual equivalent of dynamiting mountains is mining Bitcoin, right? That's the virtual equivalent of doing that.
So, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. I feel the bullish sentiment coming back, and it's not just Bitcoin; it's just the overall market too. Mm-hmm. So
I mean, and your premise is this chart can't go up forever. Now we've seen it go down, but in the grand scheme of things, when it goes down, it just seems to always go up. And part of what's propping up the S&P 500 is the fact that the US dollar keeps being printed. And so the more inflation, the more money it takes to buy a single S&P stock, right? So this applies to milk. This applies to everything. I mean, we've seen it in Venezuela. You can't have, you have to have $100 million worth of bolivars to get milk, right? So that's inflation, and that's what this chart represents. Is really just inflation. Mm-hmm. I don't think this represents the technical value of the top 500 companies. I mean, this doesn't really mean that for the last 30 years everything's been going up. It's part of it is the inflation, but this is going to come to a grinding halt eventually, and you're predicting that some between now and 30 years, this thing is gonna come to a screeching halt.
I would shrink that time frame a little bit, but between now and sometime in the near too distant future, I don't know.
Yeah.
One of these days, though, I'm gonna be right, and I don't want to be right, but I mean, because the ramifications of that are not good. But yeah, let's save that for another video.
Yeah.
This is more about what's happening in the crypto space, and considering bullish sentiment is re-entering the market, according to Will's freaking meme charts and all this stuff, like we're on the up and up. You see this orange little curve on his little, dot chart starting to do a little inverse reaction, I guess.
Yeah.
According to the meme lines, like we're on our way back up to this, the initial expectation we had at the beginning of the year, right? Which is above 100K marker for Bitcoin. So as history is always proven, like the altcoin space usually follows with it, the NFTs, everything, right? Like the whole market goes up. So what should we be looking at and paying attention to?
So we'll I guess go over one sector that we've mentioned before. It's the social tokens sector. So a couple of them you might have heard of as B20 and then Whale. So these social tokens, we think that it's like it goes back to when we first discovered sushi, and we were seeing like 1,000 APY and like all these like crazy yield numbers for these DeFi projects. And we thought, I was like, man, this got to be some sort of scam. How do you get like 1,000% APY on something? And a few months after that, all of a sudden it gets adopted by the crypto space, and and every single project has some sort of DeFi component to it where you're yielding like 100+%. And so the reason why I bring that up is because the social token space hasn't really taken off yet, like has that staying power that we expect it to have. And so this is why the social token sector should be something that you should keep an eye on. And so just go to CoinMarketCap and then click on
CoinGecko.
Yeah, sorry, CoinGecko. And then click on social money, and then you'll see the top social tokens right now. And so you'll see Whale and B20 somewhere down here.
And at one point in time, B20 was probably, and Whale were probably the reason why we have their charts pulled up, because they were the shining beacons of social currencies within the space, right? And we were scratching our noggins for the longest time. So we could have got in on both of these, like literally at the ground floor. But we were contemplating amongst ourselves, like, what is, and we do this often, probably to our own detriment. We're always looking for some kind of utility, some kind of actual application to these things. Like, why would you want to own this stuff?
Yeah.
And for some reason, it takes us a little bit longer to kind of like bypass all that reasoning and to actually look and understand it's more about community. It's more about, I think that's basically it. It's about community and like what that entails, right? Because it's a different story for each one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about community, but cryptocurrencies is all about community, right? Bitcoin wouldn't be as valuable if no one adopted it, right? So it's always been about community, but this is more specifically towards like the niche community of whatever cryptocurrency it represents. So Whale is basically a vault with a bunch of NFTs, and B20 is a similar vault but with only Beeple art. Is that correct?
Mostly, yeah. So B20 got its rise to fame during Beeple's like huge, campaign of like awesomeness, where everybody was freaking out. Everybody wanted to own a piece of Beeple's art and a part of blockchain history, right? Being, I guess Beeple being the big breakthrough artist in the blockchain sector, the NFT sector. So, with that, because B20 purchased a lot of the rarest Beeple art pieces, by that association, the fact that there's a token like supporting that ecosystem, like that's what drove a lot of the speculation, right? Like, hey, this collector, the B20 organization, has some very expensive assets that they're holding, right? I don't think these tokens actually entitle the holders to any part of that, but again, it's about community. It's about what can we do now with all of this social clout, with all of this, perception of like value, momentum, like what could be done as a collective with this token, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's where B20 went crazy. But then something happened towards the top of that where sentiment totally inversed on Beeple.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everyone's like, we don't like him that much anymore because he dumped all of his Ethereum or something like that. Therefore, the crypto space, he's now enemy number one. Therefore, screw his art, right? So the value of the B20 token went down. So
yeah, I guess it depends on when the price started tanking, because I feel like it started tanking along with everything else.
That's true.
But it also, I think it started tanking before everything else started tanking. So it could be that sentiment changing for Beeple. But I don't believe just because Beeple dumped his, I don't know how many ETH for like $30 million in cash, I don't think that really makes an impact on the value of his art. I mean, because he's been making art for the last 15 years, and just recently he's been taking advantage of it with NFTs. But we were going through this list on CoinGecko, and we found Rally, right? Rally's the number one on this list, and it has a 93 million market cap. And so we found essentially a platform that allows social tokens to be spun up by this platform, right? And just like we were saying, that I think the social token aspect, the component in the cryptocurrency space, it has a lot of staying power. So a platform that allows this to facilitate would be considered valuable. And that's why we're talking about Rally today.
Absolutely. Like platforms are always, so the last two examples we gave, the Whale and the B20, those are obviously extremely speculative and very high risk, because they're directly tied to the influencer, like, you know, navigating that narrative that supports the value of that token, right? And in this case, Rally, and this has always been the case across like all of crypto history, platforms are the safest of plays when it comes to, you know, risk. Just because of the nature of the platform. Like platforms usually facilitate a very essential things, and they usually like result in very positive outcomes for the overall industry or sector that they're supporting, right? And because of that, there's tons of actual tangible value being created. So it's just a safe bet, dude. In the social currency space, I mean, you're dealing with influencers and people who are they're not technical minded people, right? They're not going to ever figure out how to develop a Solidity smart contract. And, you know, come up with their own tokenomic schemes and stuff like that. It's not going to happen.
So one of the notable things about Rally is they just got onboarded to Coinbase, and they have a bunch of big investors. A16Z, one of the biggest investors on the planet, Coinbase Ventures, the Twitch founders, right? So they're pretty much well backed, and like you were saying, a platform is a lot less riskier of an investment. And this is definitely not investment advice, but in the grand scheme of things, it's investing in a token that's a platform is, you know, a lot better, a lot more potential upside, a lot more stability, everything. So so let's talk about what Rally is. So like we were saying before, it's basically a platform that spins up social tokens, and if you click on Discover Creator Tokens, you'll see a list of social tokens that have been spun up. And what's interesting about this is that you and I, we think about this, the mechanics of incentivization, the mechanics of supporting an ecosystem a lot. And one of the things that we've come up with for our own project is a way to incentivize the creation of content. And that's essentially what we have here. And now it's up to the creators to say, all right, I have this token. What can I do? What are the utilities that I can come up with to have some engagement with my community? And so it's literally anything you can think of, from like buying my merch to having access to an event. And so that's largely what we see here in this huge list of creators. So
exclusivity. Damn, how do you say that word? Exclusivity?
Yeah, exclusivity.
Whatever. That one. It's a lot about that. Like if you're part of a community, you want the tools to be able to, I guess, achieve status within these communities, right? So tokens are perfect for that. Eventually, NFTs are going to be leveraged for that as well.
Yes,
and
we're starting to see that. We're starting to see that right now too with the 10K projects.
Exactly. So it's just these assets that you hold as representation of your clout within these communities, right? So you as a community founder and creator, whatever, it's your duty and responsibility to make sure these people are being properly rewarded and like, you know, leveraged and positioned within these ecosystems to actually have like a greater impact, right? And therefore incentivizing more people to want to join or participate. Like it's you said something earlier today about like what, you know, YouTube, TikTok, all these platforms aren't having a difficult time at all onboarding creators and like getting influencers to build communities, right? So why do we need this? How does this help them in any way?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
I mean, you're kind of right in the sense that like, do influencers really need more money? I mean, or more tools to like milk their follower bases? I guess it's more like separating themselves from the the current monetization models of like everything's reliant on advertising, right?
Yeah, and you also brought up a good point because we were talking about this offline. It's like, you know, if the world is going to transition into this fully automated system, which potentially that's what it's looking like. So let's assume it's going there.
Yeah.
Then what are the ways that people are going to engage in the economy, right? If there's no work to be done, right, because a lot of everything is being automated, then what are they going to do? Well, they're going to create content, right? They're going to create art. They're going to create YouTube videos. They're going to create all this stuff. And
everyone have a podcast just like us,
yeah,
you know,
right?
It's whatever. Like everyone's going to have some kind of value creation mechanism just off of their own existence, right? Like that is going to become the next economy.
Yeah,
it's already there almost.
Exactly. And a creator is going to manifest its own economy. And so with that economy, you need some sort of token to represent an exchange of value for you know, some like a video, access to something, you know, an event. And we're starting to see the beginnings of something like that. But one of the notable things that Rally is doing, and we think is doing right, is something that we've thought about doing on our own platform, and that's incentivizing the community to stake, to essentially claim a stake in a project, so that that project can distribute the underlying valuable token, which is Rally, for the community. And so for here, I think every 5 days or so, or every 7 days, a certain amount of Rally tokens get distributed to the community that are staking in the individual project. And so this is a concept, a mechanism that we want to leverage for our creator base, so that when a creator amasses a community, that community can stake into that creator and thereby accruing more tokens, so that they can pay for more creations, more activity, more everything. And so that's what's happening with Rally. We think it's extremely smart. And I think that's largely what attracted us to talk about Rally in the first place.
Yeah. I immediately gravitated definitely towards like their token model and just the ecosystem and the ease of onboard to, again, like non-crypto native people. Like this is part of the big blockchain effort, right? Like how do we penetrate the mainstream? Like for sure NFTs. What else? For sure, pretty soon video, like gaming, blockchain gaming is already penetrating like in the like in Venezuela and the Philippines, Brazil, all these countries, right? Like it makes sense to those people like why blockchain gaming is a big deal, right? And that's an incentive for them to participate in these ecosystems. So now we're going to start dipping into this influencer space, which is huge. It's massive. The social influencer realm. It's literally, it's probably bigger than television at this point, I would think.
I think so. Yeah.
Without question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the influence that these TikTokers, these YouTubers and Twitter people have it's insane. It's way bigger than like anybody you see in any movie anywhere, I think. Like,
and it's because they're more identifiable. You identify with somebody on YouTube rather than somebody that's a talking head on TV.
Exactly. So clearly Rally is like in its very infant stage. It's sitting at a pretty healthy market cap though, like around hovering the 100 million market cap range. But I think it's largely because of what you said, like the type of institutional backing that it has from Coinbase and these big notable investors and stuff like that. Yeah. But from a platform perspective, it is like in its baby stage. You know what I mean? But I think because like you said, now they have a Coinbase affiliation, I think they're going to have a much easier job onboarding like these much bigger influencers onto their platform, right? That at the end of the day, once you start seeing freaking Mr. Beast on here, like with his Mr. Beast token, you start seeing who else? Who else is a big influencer?
PewDiePie.
Maybe us one day. Once we have our own token on here too, you know, like all of a sudden there's going to be massive FOMO for a platform like this, right? Like how do I get my hands on these tokens? Because they're going to give you exclusive access to whatever it is they create in the future, right? And these are the biggest creators in the world. You know?
Yeah, that's right. With the biggest followings, and you know that's why they get paid the big bucks to talk about different projects and that's been Rally. Let us know if you have any questions, and also let us know if we should make our own token on here. Whether that makes sense or not, please let us know in the comment section below. Like and subscribe, and we will catch you in the next video.
Peace out.